Well, God bless you. Well, God bless you, everyone. Sorry about the late start, but God bless you. Thank you so very much for joining us this morning here on the set of Kingdom Voice. My name is Apostle Lance Bellany, and as always, it is a pleasure to have you here with us and to be a part of your walk of faith and your kingdom journey as we journey together, as we share one with another, as we become the heirs, the sons, and we accomplish and we engage our assignments here in the kingdom. So I thank you so again, and I really don't take it lightly at all that you take time out of your busy schedule and your walk of faith to join me and to be here with me each Sunday morning as we journey together. So again, thank you so very much. I really appreciate your time and look forward to this time that we spend together. As we get started this morning, as always, please share your thoughts and your comments, your questions. It makes the conversation, the discussion, the presentation that much more engaging. Even if you disagree with what I say, let's have a dialogue about those things that you disagree. That's how we learn. And quite frankly, I'm not interested in an echo chamber where people always agree with what I have to say, because we are different. We see the world differently. We see and we engage and embrace our kingdom journey differently. And if you don't share those things that you are assigned to do, then I miss out on learning something that I don't already know. So that's why it's important, even if you have a disagreement or a different perspective, share that. Let's dialogue about it and let's talk about it. So again, thank you, and thank you all for being here with me this morning. Um, I want to talk this morning from a very familiar subject that many of us are very familiar with, or it touches our lives in many ways, and that is the subject of being a good father, being a good husband, uh, and being a good man. Now, ladies, I don't mean to push you to the side, but indulge me here today for just a few minutes to do so as I focus in on the men, on the masculine, on the fathers and husbands among us. And so um, I do want to focus in on that today as we talk about fatherhood, manhood, and being a good husband. Um, I'm going to share some information. It's well, first of all, let me say a lot of this is subjective. A lot of what I'm going to talk about is subjective, but all of what I'm going to talk about works. Okay. There are things that are subjective that just don't work. There are things that are subjective that absolutely work. From experience, I can talk about the things that I've done that worked. And yes, we're going to talk about some of the mistakes and the things that we did that didn't work. And you have to course correct. And that's okay. That's a part of the journey of life. That's a part of the journey of the kingdom, is course correcting. Even our father had to consider and course correct when he said, "It repented me that I have made man," and he ended up destroying the creation, and with the exception of a family, and use that family to continue the legacy that he desired in the earth, or that they desired in the earth. So course correcting isn't anything new. It's a part of the human experience. And so sometimes, as being a man, a father, a husband, we have to course correct, and that's okay. So we're going to talk about that today for a few minutes as we get started. So Sandrea, thank you. Lady Jolynn, Gary, Sean, thank you all so very much for checking in and letting me know that you're here. So as we get started, I'm going to share my screen with you. Um, today we want to talk about fatherhood, manhood, and being a good husband. And it's important for us to understand that in our current culture, manhood, fatherhood, being a husband is under attack. They want to replace the popular culture wants to replace the husband with or the family in general, for that matter, with this newly defined, newly orchestrated unit that they want to create. That it doesn't matter if it's a husband or if it's a wife or it's a transgender, or it doesn't matter. And it absolutely appears that the target of their intent is the most basic social structure on the planet, and that is the family. The family is universal. The family is universal, from the animal kingdom, insect kingdom, all the way into the human experience. The family is universal. It is the most basic social construct on the planet. And if I destroy, not if I can, but if I destroy it, I literally destroy the culture upon which, I destroy the very thing upon which the culture is built. If I destroy the family construct, the unintended consequences is the destruction of the very thing you're trying to achieve, that they are trying to achieve or acquire, and that is domination over the culture. Okay? When you break down the basic construct of anything, that thing crumbles, and whoever possesses that absolutely has nothing. The human body, the family construct, the social construct of a culture. If I break that down, then the people who want to possess that has nothing of value, because they destroyed the very thing upon which it is built. And so goes the construct of the family. And one of the basic, most crucial ingredients, and I notice I say one of, because there's another component of the family, and it is the wife, the feminine, the one. But today we're talking about the masculine, the man, the husband, the father. But one of the most critical components of that construct, that family construct, is the father, the husband, right? The man, the masculine. That is critical. And today we want to talk about that, and we want to give some attention to that as we move forward in our discussion. So, characteristics of a good husband, a father, and man. The first thing I want to talk about is a good husband honors their wives. Or good husbands honor their wives. I want to address this, and we're going to talk about men who are not married as well. But right now, I want to talk about a good husband. A good husband honors their wife. Good husbands rather honor their wives. And it's important for us to recognize that, because one of the writs of Scripture talk about honor the wife as a weaker vessel, honor her, protect her, be there to cover her. And in our culture today, many women find that offensive, what I just said. Okay. With the Me Too movement, the feminist movement, and all of those things, now all of a sudden women are independent. I don't need a man. I don't want a man. Men are no good. Men are toxic. All of these things are starting to come out. And what that is doing is and oftentimes it gets into the head of men. Now, I said something in many instances, and I'm going to repeat it here in this instance. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. You might want to say that you don't need a man and convince the man that you don't need him, but you haven't convinced the man that he doesn't like or doesn't desire feminine companionship. So you can run a man away. You can run a man out of your life if you choose to. All you're doing is running him into the arms of another woman. Now, in that sense, husbands need to honor their wives. Part of the process of honoring my wife is keeping my wife honest, keeping my wife aware, honoring her to the degree that she knows who I am, what I desire, what I expect. Okay. That's a part of honoring my wife. The other part of that is, yes, I don't cheat on her. I don't mistreat her. I don't abuse her. I don't mentally abuse her. This is a part of honoring my wife that me as a man, I must ensure and be certain that I take care of. Okay. It's absolutely requisite that I take care of her mental, her emotional, and her spiritual. Take care of her mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Okay, that's me honoring my wife. Okay, and the fact that I don't cheat on her, and that's basic. That is the basic of all basics. Is that I don't cheat on my wife. Don't come to me talking about you're not cheating on your wife and you're expecting a badge of honor. No, you're doing the bare minimum, the basics, what's expected of you. When you go beyond that which is expected, that's when you, if I can say this, you get rewarded. Okay, so don't come to me talking about I'm doing the basics of not cheating. I've never cheated on my wife. Thank you. Next, right? But when you are going to that place where your wife is better for being with you, now we're talking about you getting some type of attention and honor. So the foundation of these things is the family. And one of the most critical components of the family is the husband. And he has a responsibility, a requisite responsibility of honoring that woman in his life. So a good husband honors their wives, and they bring the best out of their wives. And the only way that you can begin to bring the best out of your wife is to become intimate with your wife. And I'm not talking just about physical intimacy. I'm talking about emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy, and then, yes, physical intimacy. All of those things will allow you to get to know her in a way that will allow you to meet her needs and her desires and her wants. Okay? Because the basic thing that you have to do is meet her need. And in order to meet her need, I must know what those needs are. And a part of knowing what those needs are is intimacy. I have to become intimate with her. I need to know her favorite color. I need to know her favorite food. I need to know her favorite this or that. I need to understand that, because when I know that, I can facilitate that. And brothers, being and honoring my wife requires that I understand the need for certain things beyond my masculinity, beyond my gatherer hunter mentality, beyond those things. Yes, there are some things innate to my character and my nature that allows me to facilitate my wife's needs. But then there are things that I have to learn, that I have to engage in order to meet my wife's needs. Everything is not smash and Hulk smash. Everything isn't about just brute force. Some things are about finesse. Some things are about touch and feel, okay, rather than brute force. So it's important for us, if we're going to honor our wives, that we, in fact, get to know our wives at an intimate place. And I'll tell you, that takes work, brothers, that takes work. You just don't get to know someone standing afar off. You get to know them by being intimate, transparent, vulnerable. Yes, I said it, vulnerable. Okay. And that kind of brings me to a comment that, look, if you can't trust that woman with your life, with your emotions, with your psyche, don't marry her. Okay. Because she'll destroy you in the process of you trying to take care of her. All right. So again, good husbands honor their wives. A good husband sets the standards for their marriage. I want to share this with you, and I'm sure my wife is listening. When my wife and I got married, we've been married 39 years. Well, it'll be 39 years in October. And one of the things that we established and set in our marriage, and I was a large, I drove this process. And it was a simple standard. I'm not going to chase you down. I'm not going to, be suspicious of you. But just understand that if ever I learn that there's been some infidelity there, then I want you to understand that it's over. Period. End of discussion. Oh, wait a minute, Apostle. Hold on for a second. Forgiveness. I want you to understand that in the process of setting standards for your marriage, there are some hard lines and then there are some soft lines. Okay. There are some lines that you don't want to go across, and there are some lines that you cannot go across. And in the process of in that is where you begin to set standards in your marriage. This has to happen way on the beginning. And fathers, our husbands, need to lead that charge in setting those standards. Okay. Wives have those standards too, but the husband and a good husband sets the standards for their marriage. Okay. And I know, again, I welcome your input and your thoughts because this is very subjective. I understand that, but I know it works. Okay. This may not be the only thing that works, but I can tell you this works. So if you have some insight that you'd like to share, please share it in the comments. If you can't, from Facebook, please go over to YouTube, our YouTube channel, and you can share your thoughts and your comments there. But having said that, I want you to understand that husbands ought to be in a position and should be in that position of setting the standard for their marriage with their wife. And if it's done correctly, there are no children involved yet. So now we can talk about how do we raise our children? How do we, what's acceptable and unacceptable when we do have children? All right. What's acceptable and unacceptable in our marriage? You need to lead that conversation. You need to lead that part of the discussion to talk to get to understand those things. I was sharing with you one of the things that I shared with my wife, and that is that the line that you do not cross, and she same with me. The line that you do not cross is infidelity. You engage in infidelity, it's over. Another thing we talked about in terms of setting the standard for our marriage is we don't sleep on the couch. No, we sleep in the same bed together. Okay. And we work through the issues before we go to bed. And if we can't, then we're sleeping in the same bed and we work on those issues the next day. But at the end of the day, we do not let unsettled issues fester, because they become cancers, and cancers kill and destroy the host that has the cancer. Whether it's a marriage or a person, the cancer kills the host. And so we don't let those things fester. So these are some of the standards, are the approaches. And there are things that are different for some people than others that are a no-go zone, if you will. So when I talk about a good husband sets the standards of their marriage, that is a part of the conversation that a husband and his wife are a two people looking to get married must begin to engage in if they are going to understand the go and the no-go zones in their marriage. Okay. A third thing that we talked about as a standard is that we don't share our disagreements with our family. Because let me tell you what happens when you share and when you talk about disagreements with your family. They side with you. Okay. Now, that's different than going to get counsel. When you go to get counsel, you're talking about an issue. You want an issue resolved. But when you go to complain about me or me about her to my family, that's what I'm talking about. We do not share our problems, or not problems, but our disagreements with our family. Those are some of the standards that my wife and I set as a part of our marriage and moving forward. 38 years later, almost 39, we're still together. We're still happily married. We're still very much in love with one another. So it may not be the only thing that works, but I can tell you that it does work. And your standards may be different than ours, but that's between you and your wife. But the standards are necessary. And a good husband, sets those standards, or at least sets the pace and leads the way towards setting those standards. The next thing, a good husband protects the marriage with commitment and with, excuse me, and with honor. A good husband protects their marriage with commitment and with honor. And I want to stop for a second, and I want to talk about it. I'm probably getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I do want to talk about this issue of demasculizing, and that's my word. I don't even know if it is a word. Emasculating, that's the right word. Emasculating men. There's this thing going around called, this phrase that has been coined called toxic masculinity. And I couldn't disagree more with the term toxic masculinity. And I think it is, masculinity isn't toxic. Stupid men are toxic, but masculinity isn't toxic. It is necessary. Okay. I cannot protect my family without masculinity. I cannot protect my family without a sense of pride. I cannot protect my family if I don't have a sense of self-worth. Okay? And I cannot protect my family without being masculine. Part of the male condition is masculinity. And our culture today seems to want to take that and turn it into something malleable that they want to see in terms of manhood. And so they came up with this term called toxic masculinity that I cannot disagree more. I think the term itself does more damage than anything in terms of protecting the woman. Okay? Because what my wife now, the wife that subscribes to this toxic masculinity, is trying to take away from the man the very thing that gives him the ability to protect her and her family. When someone maliciously approaches my family, my masculinity has to rise up. My masculinity has to stand to the forefront. And if you've taken that masculinity from me, what's going to stand up? Nothing. No one. Because it takes a masculine man to stand up to an attack. This is one of the things that absolutely baffles me about the whole movement in today's society regarding the masculinity of men. So a good husband protects the marriage with commitment and with honor. Okay. The other part of that is that my honor to my marriage won't allow me to destroy my marriage with foolishness, uh, uh, of infidelity. My commitment and my honor to my marriage will not allow that. I'll give you an example of what I was talking about early in my marriage. What I'm talking about early in my marriage, I was propositioned and by a very attractive young lady, and as a part of that proposition, she made her intentions well known to me. And I made the comment. I said, "No, I'm sorry, but I'm married." She said, "I'm not trying to marry you. I'm just trying to get with you." Now, stop and think about that for a second. She made her intentions very clear. I'm not trying to bust your marriage up. I'm just trying to get with you. So that would have taken some dishonor from me. Remember what I said about at the very outset, setting the standard for my marriage? That would have taken some hypocrisy and dishonor from me to engage in that and then go back to my wife as if nothing had happened. So commitment and honor will allow me to protect my marriage in a variety of ways, against malicious attack in terms of someone trying to harm or hurt my family or my wife, or in this instance of integrity, where someone's trying to get me to do something dishonorable for my family or my wife. Either way, I stand fast, and it takes someone that is committed and has honor to themselves and their families and their spouses, or in this case, their wives, to not go down that road and to honor them accordingly. That's a part of the being a good husband that we have to stand fast with. Okay. Now, one other area of a husband, and I'm going to step back and to item number one, honoring my wife. One of the things that I want to help our wives understand is that on the whole, on the norm, women tend to be a whole lot more emotionally wavering than men. Men tend to be a lot more steady than women. And there are times that the husband needs to check his wife's emotions. There are times that the husband needs to, and that's a part of him honoring you. That's a part of him protecting the family. That's a part of him establishing standards, if you will. That's important. That sometimes, as the man, as the husband, I have to call my wife and her emotions in check, because my wife has the tendency, not just my wife, but women have the tendency and the proclivity to be more emotionally wavering, and I even dare say in some instances unstable, than men do. And that's when a man has to check his wife. A husband rather has to check his wife. Now, ladies, I know that sometimes that in our culture today, that is probably a taboo statement. Okay, many women will push back on that. That's fine. I don't begrudge you the right to push back on it, but it doesn't make it untrue. Okay. And part of the process and the role of me as a husband is to help keep that instability stable. Okay. Because there's far more value with you being a little more stable or a little less unstable than it is for you to just go off on a tangent unstable and then create some other issues and challenges that now we have to solve those as well. So I want to say that and to bring that to the point of attention. So a good husband protects their marriage with commitment and honor. A good husband sets the standard or leads the way in setting the standards in their marriages. And a good husband honors their wives, treats their wives and handle their wives as a precious vessel. And this is something that we have to begin and we need to continue to do as men and as husbands so that we can continue to love our wives. I want to say this as we go on to the next part of the broadcast today. It is critically important for us to understand the powerful union that a husband and a wife presents. Okay. Husbands and wives should come to one mind. They should. And I'm not saying the husband or the wife needs to come all the way over to the husband or the husband needs to go all the way over to the wife. I'm saying that they should come to a single mind about things. I've been married 38 years. And I can tell you that my wife and I have a single mind about all the critical issues that face us. All the important issues. We have a single mind about those things. We talk about them. Okay. My wife respects my position. I respect my wife's positions. And we collectively respect each other's positions. And that's important. That's critical. That's a part of being a good husband. Okay. Good fathers provide for their families. Good fathers provide for their families. I can't say enough how important it is to spiritually, emotionally, and physically provide for your family. A good father makes sure, no matter what he has to do, that his family is provided for. Let's talk about that for just a second. When I talk about providing, you have to understand that men are primarily hunters, gatherers, providers. That's kind of built, not kind of, it's built into our DNA. Okay. That's what makes men tick. It's one of the things that makes men who we are. And it doesn't always necessarily have to be, me going out, but overwhelmingly, and this is something I want to say to us as men and to women as well. The exception shouldn't be looked at as the standard. What I mean by that is, yes, you have some stay-at-home dads. That's the exception. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that exception. That works for that husband and that wife. But don't try to make me feel bad because I am not a stay-at-home dad. Okay. And make that the norm for me when what drives me is not staying at home, but going out and providing. Because what you do in the instance that is not the desired position of that man is that you hollow out that man and turn him into something that he isn't. Okay. And at the end of the day, and I've seen it in many instances of this, where that part of the man is hollowed out of him, he goes and finds that somewhere else. Okay. A man convinced against his will, a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. Okay. You may have told me and made me, if you will, conform a certain way, but it didn't change the way I felt and the way I am on the inside. So a good husband provides for their families, and that husband goes out. And I've often said this: if I've got to work in the bottom of a septic tank to put food on my table for my family, then that's what I'm going to do, because I'm committed to taking care of my family. I'm committed to providing for my family. Okay. And as such, my family is afforded the opportunity to succeed and to thrive and to have their needs met. So a good father provides for their families and should desire and want to provide for their family. So the characteristics of a good husband, father, and men is critical in our society today, because one of the things that we have efforted to do in our society is we have efforted to emasculate men. I don't understand it. We want to turn men into something that they are not, that we are not. And you say, Apostle, you sound like a dinosaur. No, I'm just giving you the reality of the human condition, and in particular, the male human condition. And one of the things that we make the mistake of in America is that we make the mistake of thinking that the world, everybody is like we are. One of the things that I've shared with you on a previous occasion is this idea that America now is trying to export the LGBTQ, the alphabet crowd, to foreign countries, and in particular, African countries. And one of the things that I've been keeping up in terms of foreign affairs is the response from many of the African countries to America and their LGBTQ agenda. Okay, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to export that. And let me tell you something about the LGBTQ agenda. It isn't and it doesn't stop anywhere. I've watched it progress from coming out of the closet now to making me the bad guy and the villain for the way I feel. So it has gone from, we just want to come out and be a part. No, you didn't. That wasn't the, how do I want to say this? That was the facade to allow us to accept it. And now that has now come to fruition, you can see the continued advance all the way to the point where some in that community want to have free access to our children as a part of their escapades. So it wasn't about just coming out of the closet. It was about a whole nother agenda. And the African countries, many of the African countries, have rejected that. And so America is using and pulling out its purse strings to say, okay, if you don't do that, then we're going to withhold your money, the money. And many of the African countries are saying, okay, withhold the money. We'll just go find alliances elsewhere. And that's what's happening. But anyway, I digress. The point that I'm making is that many times in the process of a father providing for his family, many times they want to emasculate us and turn us into something that we are not, some very effeminate reality of a man. And masculinity just isn't feminine. It isn't. I'm sorry. It's compassionate. It can be sensitive, but masculinity isn't feminine. And that's where it goes overboard. And you want me to act like a too effeminate. And that often leads to destruction and to some very unfortunate things. Okay. And so good fathers are positive examples to their sons and their daughters. I have conversation with my children not almost, but on a daily basis. I've got 2 daughters and 2 sons, and I talk to them regularly, check in with them. They're grown. They are men and women now. My youngest is 28 years old. Okay. They are grown men and women. I raised them, my wife and I did, but I'm talking about the men now. I raised them their entire lives and afforded them the opportunity to see what a good man does, what a good father does, what a good husband does. As a part of my upbringing, I'll never forget a story my mother told me and my father told me. And that really stroked the masculinity in me. I'll never forget my mother and father were going out somewhere and buying furniture, and they went to the store. And while they were at the store, at the furniture store, one of the salespeople were trying to sell them some new furniture. They were in the market for some new furniture. They were trying to sell them some new furniture. And it just happened to be so that my father didn't like the furniture that was there. So the salesman was talking to my mother and father, and they were just going on and on and on. And after my father said, "No, thank you, we're just going to keep looking," the salesman stopped talking to my father and turned and looked at my mother as if to say, "I don't care what you say, I'm going to hear what she says." And when he did that, I can recount the emotion in my father as he was telling me this story, and my mother, we were all together telling me that story. My father, the ire in my father raised, and because what had happened was the salesman demonstrated a blatant disrespect for what my father had to say, and turned and was asking my mother in front of my father as he disrespected him. And needless to say, that didn't end well for the salesman and his cause to sell some furniture, and probably didn't do well for him in terms of the ensuing confrontation, although it wasn't physical, confrontation with my father. The point to be made is that in the terms of being a positive example, my father demonstrated to me, and what I took away from that was, wait a minute, you cannot gain access to my family by disrespecting either me or my wife. That I will not allow. And I took that to heart. And that was one of the things that I've continued to demonstrate as an example to my sons and daughters, is you don't allow someone to disrespect you in the process of you engaging with them. Demand respect from them. And so, as an example to my children and to my family, that's one of the things that I've always demonstrated to my sons and daughters as just an example. So a good father sets an example. The other part of that is that my family, my children sees what a good husband is. And again, I'm going to say this multiple times today. It may not be the only way, but it is a way that works. Okay? So you can start with my example, but you can build your own, because mine isn't the only way, but I promise you it is a way that works. So when people start saying things like, well, there's more than one way to skin a cat, that is true. That is true. But the way I do it definitely works. So you can start with that as an example. A good father is a positive example to their sons and their daughters. I want to say something here again with respect to the sons aspect of, and to the daughters. Sometimes a father has to rescue his children from their mother. Okay? Sometimes a father has to rescue their children from their mother. Apostle, what are you talking about? Here's what I'm talking about. Moms and their babies is a pure emotional experience in most instances, majority of the instances. Okay? I'll give you another example. My son went off to the military academy at West Point, and it got tough. It got tough on him. And as a result of it getting tough on him, he wanted to leave. And mom was ready to get her baby home. Well, daddy saw that that wasn't the right or the best thing. Well, I'm not going to say the right, but that wasn't the best thing for that boy that is becoming a man. And so daddy, yours truly, had to step in and had to talk with my son and had to address my wife to say that no, he's not coming home. No, son, you're going to stay there. You're going to stick it out. You're going to honor it. And you're going to earn yourself a way to provide for you and your family when it's time for you to be a dad. Today, he's a dad, a father, and a husband. Excuse me, a father, a husband, and of course, a man. And I can't tell you the number of times that we've had conversations about that instance, about that issue. And he thanks me to this day, to this very day. He thanks me for encouraging him along those lines. I'll give you another example. My other son, it's amazing how when I have to rescue my sons. I'll never forget this. We were living in Georgia at the time, and we had just bought my son a car. And my son went out, and he knew the rules that, you know, you're going to be in before midnight. Okay. I know you got a car and I know you're a senior, but you're still going to be in my house before midnight. Midnight comes around. No son, no car. 1 a.m. comes around. No son, no car. 3 a.m. I'm getting worried by this time. Sometime between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. he shows up. Like he's about to come in my house. Like he's about to sleep in the bed that I pay the light bills and the electric bill, rather, for to keep it warm for him to lay in. Like he's gonna eat the food that I paid for to put on the table so that he could eat and be nourished. So sometime between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. he shows up, and he comes to the door. I meet him at the door. I stopped him at the door. I said, "Where you going?" He said, "You coming in?" "No, sir, you're not coming. Not this house. Not tonight. You're not coming in." I said, "Let me have the keys." He gave me the keys. I said, "Now, I don't know where you're going. I don't know how you're going to get there, but you're not coming in this house, not tonight. So you can go wherever you came from and do whatever you did before you got here, but you're not coming in here, not tonight." So he gave me the keys and he walked out. There was a garage. He came in through the garage. He walked out the garage. I said, "Now, I tell you what, I am going to do this for you." I said, "You can have a pillow and here's a blanket. Now, wherever you sleep with that pillow and blanket is up to you. But you're not sleeping here tonight." Gave it to him. He walked out the door, and I shut the door right behind him. And my wife was furious. My wife was furious. That was her baby. No, he wasn't. That was a young man becoming a man. but that was her baby. No, this is somebody that has to be taught how to be responsible, but that was her baby. This is what I'm talking about. Sometimes daddies have to rescue their boys, their daughters from their wives, from their mothers. Today, my son, and I can promise you that was a pivotal moment in my son's life. We've often talked about it. Today, my son, I couldn't be prouder of him. A husband, a father. He takes care of his children. He's raising a family, married. This is why being a good example is necessary, so that your sons and daughters can grow up to become an example to their children and their legacy. So good fathers are positive examples for their sons and their daughters. I know I'm going a little bit long. Bear with me here. Good fathers sometimes have to protect their children from their mothers. That's what I was just talking about. Okay. Being an example, protecting your children. I'll give you one more example as we close. My daughter was a dancer. And when she was growing up, and I'll never forget this, we have a standard in our home where we don't start something and quit. We finish it and decide not to go back or not to return. There's a big difference. So I don't quit on my teammates. I don't quit in the middle of a season. I don't quit in the middle of an assignment. I finish it, do my best. And then after I did all of that, I may make the decision, I just don't want to go back and do that anymore. Now you've at least brought that to a conclusion. May not have been successful, but you brought it to a conclusion. And so I'll never forget, my daughter's a dancer, and she came home just continuously in this particular dance season. And they would go all over Florida, Texas. We were in Georgia at the time, all over to dance and to compete. You guys, the ladies, a lot of you have seen dance moms. Well, my wife was a dance mom. And this particular dance season, she was miserable. We were here in Texas by then. She was miserable. She would come home crying and just disheartened at how the instructor was handling her and treating her. And she wanted to quit. And I said, no, I said, we're going to finish this. You're going to do what the instructor asks. You're going to learn from this experience. And then after this is over, if you don't want to go back, you don't have to dance anymore. So she finished it. She didn't go back. And she never danced again competitively. However, after she finished that season of dance, she decided that she was going to cheer. Now, I want you to understand something. As a cheerleader, cheerleading is like basketball, football. It's very competitive. And some of these young girls have been cheering since they were in first, second grade, just like Lauren had been dancing. My daughter had been dancing since she was in second, third grade. But she decided she wanted to cheer. Not only did she want to cheer, she wanted to try out for the cheering squad at one of the biggest schools in Houston. And she did. And when she went and tried out for that cheer squad, not only did she make it and earn a spot on the varsity cheering squad, but they even invited her to try out for captain of the cheer squad. That's how much she persevered through that instance. If I had let her quit, perhaps she would not have had the perseverance and the fortitude to go try and earn that spot on that cheer squad. But she did. I want to say something here as it relates to fathers and being good fathers. I want to say something. Listen to me closely, dads. When you father from a place of love, you don't make bad decisions. you make tough decisions. I'm going to say that again. When you father from a place of love, concern, compassion, you don't make bad choices or bad decisions. You make tough choices and tough decisions, because the decision and choice you make, Elohim is going to see it to your good and their good concerning your children. Okay? It's going to work out to their good, but it may be a tough choice that you have to make. Making my son stick it out at the academy, forcing my son to be responsible about coming in at night, requiring my daughter to stick it out and to hang in there when times got tough. These are tough choices that you make. They're not bad choices, because in the end, mother and father work it out for my and their good. Because for me, all I want to see is what is best for them. And Elohim saw it out as such. When we're parenting or fathering from a place of love and compassion, just keep in mind this thing. I want you to keep this in mind. Your decisions aren't the wrong decisions. They're just tough decisions. You don't know the outcome, but Elohim, mother and father, knows the outcome. And they're going to see that outcome to your good and to their good, to your children's good. Okay? Now, conversely to that, this is why we don't parent from a place of anger and a place of frustration and a place of malice, because then your decisions will definitely be detrimental and destructive, and your choices will be destructive to your children. See, this is why I always check my heart. I always check my heart. Am I parenting from a place of love and concern? If I am, I'm good. Am I parenting from a place, fathering from a place of anger and malice? I need to halt that, stop that. Now, certainly I get angry. Okay, there's no question about that. I get angry, but my anger is from a place of concern and love for my child. I'll never forget. I will. Oh my gosh. I'm being transparent here. The same son that came in at 4:00 in the morning. You remember that example? That same young man had a tendency and a propensity to just lie. Yeah, sometimes unprovoked, just lie. And this one time I was talking with him, and I knew he had done something, and I challenged him with what I knew, and I was waiting for him to lie. And I think mother understood that I was now parenting from a wrong place. Okay. Because I'd let my anger drive that inquiry rather than love and concern. And I challenged him with it, waiting for him to lie to me so that I could unleash my anger. And mother, just for whatever reason that day, my son came forward with the truth. And my anger just went way, 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 way down. And I was transparent with him about, what was taking place. And mother allowed me to avoid some probably catastrophic results of that situation. My point being is that when you parent from a place of anger, you make bad decisions. Okay? You make bad choices when you father from a place of anger. So avoid fathering and parenting from a place of anger, and do so from a place of compassion and concern and love. And then all your choices will be, they will end up good, but they may be tough. Okay. Let's close by talking, and just give me a few more minutes to talk about men. Men are masculine. Men are providers. I talked about that. And men are protectors. Don't let society emasculate you. Don't let society convince you that your masculinity is somehow bad. Don't let society convince you that being a man is somehow not required in this world today. That is as crazy as believing that a man can just by the way he thinks become a woman. Okay? That's right over there in that category of thinking. You are a man. You have masculine tendencies. Those tendencies are good for you and your family and your children. Learn how to manage that masculinity. Learn how to use it to profit your family and your children, to protect your wife and your family and your children. I'll give you one more example of about my son. This is the one that ended up at the academy. I'll never forget. He was in middle school, elementary school. And I think the name of the school was Indian Creek. As a matter of fact, we were in Georgia. And as young boys do, they cut up in school, right? That's what young boys do. So he was cutting up, and he was cutting up with a little buddy of his. And the little buddy of his happened to be Caucasian. And being in the South, you can understand that there was some tendencies of the adults in the room to look at this situation and see certain things. Well, that's exactly what happened. So he comes home and he tells me, he said, Dad, he said, I got in trouble today. So my first instance is, okay, tell me what happened. I want to know. I want to understand why you got in trouble. So he was beginning to tell me, and he made this statement. He said, well, me and so were playing around, joshing around, and this, that, and the other, and we got in trouble. Okay, all right. What happened? Well, the principal and the teacher did such and such. I said, wait. Say that again. She said, they sent me to the office and they sent him back to class. I said, no, they didn't. He said, yeah, Dad, that's what they did. I said, okay, I'll be at the school tomorrow to address this with the principal. So needless to say, I went to the school and I addressed it. And come to find out, it was exactly what my son had shared with me. I said, so you're telling me that two kids doing the same thing, engaging in the same acceptable behavior, you're going to punish my son and not punish the other kid? I don't care what you do with the other kid, but you're not going to treat my son different than you treat the other kid doing the same thing. And sure enough, after me pressing, found out that's exactly what they were trying to do. And I said, not only are you not going to do this to my son, but you're going to apologize to my son and to me for what you did or tried to do to him. I said, that's unacceptable. And sure enough, my son got an apology. We got an apology, and the issue was pushed away. I didn't have a problem with them chastising or punishing my son for unwarranted behavior. But what I was not going to do is allow them to mistreat him or treat him differently without him knowing that I'm standing up for his honor and for his protection. These are the kinds of things that a man, that masculinity will do and will stand and will not allow when it comes to your family. So again, I just wanted to share these characteristics of a good husband, father, and a man in today's broadcast. I see we've got a few comments and a few questions I want to address before we close today. And again, thank you so very much for allowing me to share with you. I see let's go back to the beginning. Thanks you, Apostle Vince. I believe that the destruction and the foundation of family is intentional by those that are trying to redefine what a family should look like. And Apostle, I absolutely agree with you that a good that the family foundation is trying to be destroyed so that they could turn it into something that they can control, that they can define, that they can dictate to. And in doing so, they can control the most basic foundational component of our society. And the thing that I contend is that if you destroy the family, there is no substitute for the family. And you literally destroy the very thing that's holding up what you want to control. So by the time you destroy the family, if you are successful at doing so, you'll have nothing to rule over. There is a saying, though, and we have to be mindful of this. Y'all listen to me closely. Demented rulers will rule over ashes before they are without power. Before they allow themselves to be without power, they will rule over the ashes that they create in trying to achieve that power. Bear that in mind, especially in this time that we're living in. There are some among us that will destroy the family, trying to arrive at power, and are completely willing to rule over ashes rather than to allow someone else to be in power. That's what we're dealing with. Sandrea said this. She said, Apostle, thank you for being transparent. This is beautiful and gives hope for those of us who still believe in the institution of marriage. I've been married before and both ended in divorce. And I will say, Sandrea, that as certainly that was and probably is tragic and emotionally tolling on your life. The marriage relationship is foundational to the kingdom. It is, because it represents the very thing from which we emanate as kingdom heirs: family, relationship, intimacy. And so I would say, don't give up on marriage. Allow Elohim and counsel and just your maturity to engage in the right relationship and allow Elohim to guide and to be the guide of that. And you'll see the beauty that marriage has to offer. So thank you, Sandra. I really appreciate that. And you went on to say, and I remember amicable, and I remained amicable with both and am believing for another chance of love and marriage. Absolutely. And again, I would say that as that opportunity presents itself, okay, go into it with open eyes, with eyes wide open. Because in the process of the relationship, road signs will appear. Some will say stop, others will say go. You want to see more go signs than stop signs. Because when you start to see stop signs, see them for what they are, address them for what they are, and deal with them and get past them. If you can't get past it, go find someone else to be and to pursue or to be pursued by. Okay? Because people tell us who they are. We either listen to them or we ignore what they say to us to our own peril. Gary said this: strong husbands will cry daily. He has not done enough. Absolutely. Good fathers will cry daily with their family members when their family members hurt and are in pain. He works just like Elohim and Sophia does with us. Absolutely. They want the best for us. They lament over us. They are concerned for us, as is a good father his children, his loved ones, his family, laments when things are not the way they should be, and works and pursues to get them where they are and where they should be. I can remember this, and I'll say this. When I was just an uncle and I had no children at the time, my attitude toward children was completely different than it was when I had my own children. Then I looked at my nieces and nephews with a different lens when I had my own children, and and understood the process of children and younger people differently when I had my own children. Okay. And so I understand that as we have children, it changes our perspective, and we understand how Elohim looks at us. It's just it's impossible not to. It's impossible to fully understand how Elohim looks at us without having children of your own. Now, some would argue with me on that, but I would stand fast because I know from experience that having children of your own gives you a different perspective on the entirety of what we call life. It just simply does. And you may want to make the argument, but it's a failed argument. Okay. That somehow people without children can see the world as people with. I'm not saying that they don't see the world in a functional way. I'm saying that it gives you a different perspective that you cannot gain without having children. I'm not saying one is right or wrong or bad or good. I'm saying it is different, and it is a completely different perspective that you cannot gain without having children of your own. Apostle Vince said this: great message for the month of the Father, Av. One of the prophetic characteristics of this month is revelation of the goodness of the Father's heart toward the heirs. You know, Apostle, it is amazing. You always tell me this is a good message. This is the month, and it speaks to the thing that I often talk about is that, and it confirms the fact that I am flowing in the spirit of Elohim. As you share these types of insights with me and with us as a community, completely ignorant to the month of Av, but yet in flow with the spirit that this month is all about. I had no idea, but today I was led to teach and to share and to talk about this experience called manhood, fatherhood, and being a good husband, right? And it's in line with the spirit of this month. And so, Apostle, thank you so very much for sharing that. Hey, babe, I see my wife checked in. Lady Jolynn said this, said, good fathering is not to make their kids' lives easy, but to build their responsibility and character. That is inherently not easy. That is absolutely correct, Lady Jolynn. Is that, you know, my job is, you're right, not to make their lives easy, but to build character and responsibility in them so that when they get out to go do whatever it is that they're going to do as men and women, that they are well equipped to go do that. And as I said, I talk with all of my children on a regular basis. I've got 4 kids, four sons and daughters, and I talk with them on a regular basis. And I can tell you how the things that my wife and I, and again, I'm talking about me today, instilled in them was so beneficial and has come back to roost, if you will, in a good way to allow them to be productive in their lives. Sean said this, great subject. The message needs to be on the flip side, meaning not having a masculine role in the home has contributed to many women emasculating men and women becoming masculine. Sean, that is absolutely spot on point, and a good point to bring this to a close. The antithesis of not being masculine has forced women to be masculine, has forced women to try and emasculate men. So it is an effort to just flip flop the narrative. Women aren't masculine. They don't do a good job at being masculine. They can't be masculine. They might perpetrate masculinity, but they can't be masculine. They try it and they mess things up because that's not their role. That's not their design. And it disrupts the culture, the society. And as such, the children suffer in the process. Let me say this. I'm way over time, but let me say this. I want to go back to this exporting the alphabet crowd to Africa that I was talking about. They completely rejected that and rejected the American pressure to allow or to force them to legislate homosexuality, LGBTQ agenda, and the like in their country, and stood fast and said, we will not have it. This is not our culture. Our people overwhelmingly reject it, and you are trying to force us to do something that we've democratically rejected. That goes to show you that as much as we often promote the democracy, when it comes to our desires as a country, our intentions, we throw that out, and now we want to bully another democracy in doing what we do. No, that's not right. And I completely agree with the position of these other countries to reject America on that front. So again, I absolutely stand in opposition to the exporting of this immoral agenda that is being perpetrated on us as a people, and that will ultimately bite us and hurt us and harm us as we go forward. That agenda will hurt us in many ways that we probably don't even see today. Well, listen, beloved, thank you so very much. I want to say to all of you and ask all of you, thank you for your comments. I want to also say to you, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Email, website, regular mail. You can reach us at our podcast at Kingdom Talk. But I also want to ask you, if you would, consider donating to what we're doing here, making a contribution. And if you are so inclined, please share with us on Cash App or PayPal. And either way, we'll certainly be appreciative for the support that you give us. Thank you again, everyone, for being a part of the broadcast today. Thank you for being with us for this last hour and 17 minutes. And I want to say to you, please come again, join us next week as we continue to share with you truths of the kingdom from an apostolic perspective. Until then, I want to ask you to be well, be blessed, and we'll see you next Sunday. Thanks, everyone.